Hi guys, this is Jeremy. This is my fifth video for flexible urban modeling, and for this video I'm gonna try to introduce you guys to modeling on the ground level, especially street and urban details such as modeling more intricate details such as varying heights, as well as trying to now designed for more variations in form, allowing more flexible geometry and rapid differentiation in the modeling techniques through using generate topology, and then further attaching detail through Greeble. And basically, I'm trying to make urban environments look realistic by creating all these varying details. And this is just going to be what we're trying to achieve in this scene where on the ground level, the favela in this sci-fi utopia, we have this overarching command centers that's levitated above ground, as well as so the favelas on the ground, and then you can see that these hyper towers are these towers are additions to it, parasitic additions to it, that is independent of the favela. So potentially speculating on the rise of different social classes, as well as varying forms that we can generate, and then basically just speculating on the fact that urban environments might rise vertically, creating this segregation from the ground level and top level, and then we're going to create this richness in the environment that allows differentiation essentially from these two different conditions. Let's get started then. We'll first reset the scene. Alright, what we'll first design is a all these individual high-rise towers that are different than the favelas on the ground, and as you can see, they have jagged edges and this abnormal geometry, and we're going to try to achieve that. So we're going to start by this time we're going to draw using lines. Previously with using just the standard primitives that 3DSMAX offers, but this time we're going to start using lines, and we're going to generate all these jagged edges with all this incidental rise of essentially high-rise towers that were not designed to fit within the city itself, but rather the sudden eruption of development in the sci-fi dystopics era. So we want to create as many angles as we can, just creating a different variety of a cap for the spaces. So just arranging it, arraying it, just essentially trying to be creative with the base geometry of it, which is the splines. Try not to make squares, as that is gonna make it look as if it was part of the favela on the ground level. So bear in mind that you want to make sure you don't do that. So we have a couple of it, so maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, varying in size, and we want to model all of this independently, because part of this urban dystopic city is that it's just sudden construction, sudden growth of it meant that it was really spontaneous and to a certain extent really random, and it didn't reflect the ground level as much as the ground levels, it didn't respect the ground levels previous typology, and therefore let's get started with extruding it by, and they seem really tall, so just feel free to make them as tall as you want it to be. Let's make it higher, actually 100, 800. Some of it can be slender, some of it can be how should I say, a little bit wider, depending on how it should look on the ground. Again, let's just extrude. Try to give it varying heights. So um, so that one looks a bit weird, so we're just gonna delete that. 800, 1000. Yep, that looks good. A little more variation. So 760 is good. Some of it is lower. Don't worry about the overall form of it as of now. I'm just gonna make sure that there is this degree of inconsistency and variation in its build form. So this seems about alright. So and then we want to get that narrow perspective from here looking upward. So we're going to start arranging it along the axis, and then we're just going to use the move tool to create that panoramic perspective of the sea as it grows. That looks about right. The structure looks much bigger. What we could do is just copy it and then scale it up slightly, and then rotate it. So there is this level of randomness and abstraction. Yeah, we can rotate that too. And then when we model the ground level, it will be much more rationalized to reflect perhaps the world that we're living in today, which is much more organized and much more well designed, whereas this one is completely incidental and to a certain extent random. Whoops. Cool, so we have that perspective now. I'm quite happy with it. Just to make it a little bit more to populate it a little bit more, we just gonna move it and shift it around. Alright, and then we're gonna create this high-rise field city that we see here. Alright, let's start modeling all this detail that we can see here, with some destruction going on, some stuff being left hanging on the buildings, a lot of decay occurring on all this with the lack of maintenance. So what we can do is start by dividing this in segments. So what we could do is we could start using edit poly again, and then just selecting all its faces. We can then use to generate topology to start giving it a little bit more variance in form. So with using Extrude, we can't subdivide the lines itself. So what we'll need to do is to first, so you can see these are seemingly random forms. We can start to again use just ring it, and then we can then use connect. And we've just formed a turn on edge faces so that we know what we're doing. Connect. There we go. So previously we were doing it in one segment, and that gave us just one. We're gonna repeat that process. What we'll do is we'll do multiple segments, maybe 50 stories. That's a bit too much. 40, and there we go. We have 40 stories for this. We'll just do the same for the rest of the buildings as well. So and let's connect all this 50. Sweet. Oops. Okay. Looks okay. We're gonna try to maybe make some windows for it. So just using connect edges, we can then start to make windows between them. Tree will be good enough. That looks about right. Let's continue doing that for the others. Be generous with this, and also try to make it cool. So 20, that looks okay. Let's try again. We're gonna try with just tree. Great. Now on to the next one. Again, just connecting it. Sorry about that. Let's try again. So just connecting it. Perhaps this one can have a little less, or this could be super dense. So let's put 25. See what happens to it. Oh, remember to click. So let's try again for this. Again, we're gonna do edit poly. Let's make this super dense. So again, just connecting it. And then choosing this and connecting it to. So once we're done with this, we want to add further variations on the top, something like this. So what we can do now is to then select. Alright, actually I'm quite happy with this. So what we'll do now is to use this edit poly, select all of it, and then we're going to go to polygon modeling and generate topology. So there's a range of procedural topologies that we can generate through 3DSMAX. You're welcome to play with it and right, it's behaving weirdly. So alright, so just play around with it, and now we can get this sort of variation and form that's kind of abstract but still looks architectural. So let's keep it that way for that one. Let's try and see if we can do anything different on this one. And we can now create this followed by more crazy forms. Seems good. Maybe you want to try this. That looks okay too. We can try this from the beginning. Seems to be creating something quite irrational. Looks pretty good too. This one looks great. And then we have this kind of destructive, like decaying building that we can see here, forming on this, creating this language of destruction. We can further decay it. This one looks great too. Maybe we can push it a little bit further. Yeah, so showing signs of decay. And then this just goes to show like the amount of possibilities that we can generate through this function alone. This one looks promising too. So the idea is to generate as many iterations as you can, just to show the high degree of variation it has with the ground. Let's finish off here. Oops, I might have forgotten about that building. Cool. And then we can proceed with generating some really cool building shapes. So that looks good. Alright, let's finish off this one too. And this one kind of looks like something here where it's kind of tapered down. It's kind of eroding kind of language. I'm cool with that, as long as it's legible and structural. That should be fine. Awesome. So at this point we have buildings, we have the urban towers. what we want to generate now is what's happening on the ground level. So let's create a plane. So I don't think we've done a plane in any of my tutorials yet. So we'll generate a ground plane. Hold on, just hold on square to make it symmetrical. And then we're gonna turn this, click right click, 90 degrees, 90 degrees on the x-axis. So let's try this instead. So instead of manipulating that, we're gonna change this. So just to get the panoramic effect. So looking good. And then we want to create the length segments to indicate property boundaries. Not too many. Actually 10 would be just nice. Alright, so again, in order to use polygon modeling, just go to edit poly, and then we're going to use this. Just to keep it simple, we're just going to use the tiling effect, just to show a little bit of more order as opposed to the chaos happening above ground. And we are suggesting that the ground floor favela is had been part of an urban plan or strategy before the rise of the towers. So that looks good. Now, in order to create to extrude this, we're going to use Greeble to create buildings that are more aligned and in a more orderly way. We're gonna okay, so something seems to be going on here. So because we've rotated it 100 degrees, we're gonna flip it back upwards, and then here we go. Now we can see all buildings rising above the ground. So reduce the taper to 0 so that they are perpendicular. Widgets are fine, just to show a little bit of services happening on the top. So just and then we can also control the density of it. So as we can see here, there's a lot going on at the top. So these are just services. That's a bit too much, so we're just going to keep it down to 3. I'm going to take away some weird shapes. That looks fine. So now from the ground level, you can see that there's this buildings overlaid on top that is significantly different in character, and that's exactly what we want. Great. Now the next thing we want to add more detail would be this ring, as well as the signboards that's popped up. So in this hyperdense environment, we probably need more advertising in order to get an understanding of the space and where things are. So we need signboards all over the place, obviously. So we're gonna start from the favela. So let's select the sides, and from the sides we're gonna now we're gonna take away the ground level. We don't want anything on the ground level, so just going from the front and using Alt Net, we're gonna take away. Alright, let's use edit poly again. And so from the front, alright, let's try greeble again. So another layer of greeble, and this time what we really want is the signboards to be protruding outwards. So same thing, 0, and let's keep the density to a minimum. So instead, what we'll do is we won't generate that, just to keep it a little bit cleaner. So on our second layer of greeble, we're going to increase the size of this element. So those kind of indicate where the signboards are. So that it kind of has to be big as well. So we'll try increasing the density so many, just to increase the amount of signboards that there is here. So now you get to see significant amount of detail happening. So I'm happy with that. So we've created all these signboards and whatnot, and let's add that to the towers as well. So just selecting this, and we can use greeble on it too. Let's not generate widgets, but just this protruding elements. Actually we should, so let's create some that intentionally extend out. So sorry, yes, so more details and more protruding elements coming out of the buildings, especially this ones. So just select all of it and click on greeble, and now we get really high level of detail happening. So you have certain buildings who are still operational, and then some who are in the process of decay. Cool. So most of it seems fine, and keep the table to minimal, and then we should have a lot of detail on the buildings at this point. So the greeble was previously we wanted to use it as a massing tool. We now use it as a detailing tool as well for urban environments. Just so you guys know, when we selected the edit poly, we could also use varying patterns for this. So don't forget to check out this portion where we can choose different patterns. Selection, patterns, a checkered pattern, dotted pattern, basically any pattern that you are interested in. And finally, we want to create this ring sphere thing that's like levitating above the ground. So let's design from the top view. And what we'll start off with is a cylinder. And then with edit poly, we're going to take away most of it, leaving us with this. And so with this, what we'll do is make an inset and generate as many rings as we can inwards. So let's create another one with a varying depth. Again, make this one a little bit smaller, and then again, and again, and then creating a core perhaps. And then deleting it from the inside. So what we'll do actually is we're going to create more segments, more sides. That was a bad idea actually, but we can work with this. So what we can do now is we're going to further subdivide it to get a so instead we're going to use tessellate to create smaller so you're going to select all of it, and then we're going to tessellate it in a square for one iteration, depending on how the degree of and after that we're going to select edit poly again, and then we're going to start chipping away and showing some signs of decay on this ring. So what we'll do is we're going to use this, and then we're going to use the selection tool called patterns, and we're going to use checker, and then we'll start deleting it, just randomly selecting it, maybe grow and try pattern 5, and then we can then delete. This gives you a quite a random kind of selection, maybe dots. We can delete that, and then grow this, and then we can try one ring, grow again, try patterning it until and repeat this process as many times as is necessary. So on this part there is a lot more decay, so, and then as you click more kind of chips away. Sometimes you want to hold back too, so that make sure that this is structurally possible. And then just take that away. Drop pattern tree. Patterns and pattern 1. Select patterns. actually quite happy with this. So alright, so we have a cylindrical ring. What we'll have to do now is to use edit poly, select all of it, and then extrude. Use a face extrude function to give it thickness. So maybe 10. That looks great. And then in recreating all this electronic wiring and mechanical systems on the top, what we'll do instead is use Greeble again, increase the density, and then keep tapering to minimum, or we can use taper in this case, and then increase the height of it. And then we get this mini ecosystem of electronic things living on the top and just floating above the ground. And then now we want to put it in place, so we'll just keep it there. Right, and then we're going to move it in place. Let's rotate that. 100 degrees. That looks good. So if we're looking from here, this thing would be somewhere floating around here. And also we want to scale it down a bit, it looks ginormous, so great. Okay, we fixed the problem with the pivot being somewhere else. So we can then arrange this and let it just levitate above the ground in the middle of the sky. And just to make it a little bit more hyper real, we're just going to do this. We're going to make instances of it and maybe make 4 of it, which is floating across the sky. And by instance, what happens is once I scale this, alright, so I'm going to scale this down a little bit, and then just move it to the side. But what we want is for it to look like it's part of this mechanical system that is ruling and overlooking the city. And there we are just looking down from below somewhere here. Now for us to create that perspective, let's create a camera again. Focusing on this, so from here, focusing on, turn on snaps and select target, and from here we're going to look into that space. So let's have a look at what we would be looking at through the camera. Okay, that angle is way off. So sorry, we forgot to turn the widget off, so it's snapping into random objects. Now this looks a bit better. Okay, we are at a really low angle, so we're gonna have to move both this and the camera target here. These objects might be a little bit too high to be part of the camera scene, so and normally we will want to be on the ground level, so I'm just going to move this back down here. And select both of that, and then we're going to shift it a little bit upwards and target. Let's shift it back upwards, and then we can also make changes to this, so we can change the field of projection and the lens as well, and we should have a really similar scene to this. The final touch for this would be to add text onto some of the billboards along this along the buildings. So what we can do is to quickly add a compound object, a text plus object. So given we can try just using some random we'll try using some random Chinese characters. We'll generate series of Chinese words and just apply it here, and it should pop up somewhere. So let's have a look at it. So yeah, there we go. So what we'll do is we'll attach it towards this surface right here. So and that way. So in order to do that, we'll have to use an MCG script, script glue. Just quickly dropping it back into here, and it should pop up. So first you can select this, and then you pick a base object, and then we click glue. And it should attach to it. So it's trying to glue mesh versus glue. So this is going to attach it to the. Okay, let's move it down a little bit, and then it should attach to it. And if we then extrude it, we should be able to extrude the words out, and that should give us a high degree of realism along the face here. So thanks for watching, guys. As you can see here, we managed to create that Unreal Urbanism really quickly within half an hour. That somewhat resemble this in order for us to proceed with the design. Thank you, guys.